I've been a sailor for 12 years, but I'll never forget that day in Annapolis. Some moments define our lives, and that was mine. My name is Catherine Reynolds, a captain in the United States Navy. I grew up in a family with a naval tradition stretching back 4 generations. My great-grandfather served in World War II, my grandfather in Vietnam, and my father in the Gulf War. When I decided to follow in the family tradition, my grandfather, Commander James Reynolds, a decorated veteran and man of few words, simply nodded. To him, I was just another granddaughter trying to prove a point. It wasn't easy. While my high school friends in Norfolk, Virginia, planned parties and dates, I obsessively studied physics and trained in swimming. When I received my acceptance letter to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, my father wept with pride. My grandfather simply murmured, "We'll see if you can handle it." The Naval Academy was more difficult than I could have imagined. Waking up at 5:30, quarters inspection, rigorous naval engineering classes, grueling physical training, and the constant pressure to excel. Women represented less than 30% of the student body, and I felt I had to prove myself twice as much as my male. Many instructors were veterans of the pre-female integration era in the Navy and made no secret of their skepticism. During those 4 years, I visited my family only on holiday. My grandfather always asked about my academic performance, never about my well-being. "The Navy is no place for sentimentality," he would say. I knew he doubted I would complete the course. This only made me work harder. My senior year, I was selected to lead Battalion 23, an honor granted only to the most outstanding cadets. I would be responsible for training, disciplining, and preparing 150 cadets for their graduation ceremony, including the traditional standing order presentation with an M14 rifle, a centuries-old tradition in Annapolis. My grandfather, at 78, confirmed he would attend my graduation. It would be the first time he had attended an academy ceremony since his own graduation in 1965. "I hope they haven't slacked off on the training," he commented over the phone. I swallowed hard. He hadn't known I would be leading the battalion. In the weeks leading up to graduation, we trained exhaustively. The close order presentation was meticulous. Every movement, every step, every rifle swing had to be executed in perfect synchronization. We used real M14 rifles, but with modified bolts that prevented the loading of live ammunition. It was a tradition, a symbolic demonstration of precision and discipline. The day before the ceremony, Admiral Harrington, Commandant of the Academy, called me into his office. "Cadet Reynolds, your leadership of the 23rd Battalion has been exemplary. Tomorrow, you will lead not only your battalion, but the entire battalion in its standing order. You will be the first woman to do so at a graduation ceremony." I froze. It was a huge honor, but also a crushing responsibility. I thought of my grandfather watching from this. "Yes, sir. It would be an honor, sir," I replied automatically. That night, I could barely sleep. I mentally reviewed every command, every formation. Tomorrow would be the culmination of 4 years of hard work, and my chance to finally earn my grandfather's respect. Graduation day dawned under a clear May sky. The historic Annapolis campus glowed in the spring sunshine. Thousands of family, friends, officials, and dignitaries filled the grandstands of the parade ground. I spotted my family in the third row, my father in his formal uniform, my mother, elegant in a navy blue gown, and my grandfather, erect and solemn in his old dress uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. The 1,000 graduates marched in perfect formation onto the field. My battalion was in the vanguard, and I marched in front, my heart pounding against my immaculate white uniform. I could feel my grandfather's gaze following me. When the time came for the standing order presentation, I stepped forward. My voice rang out clear and firm in the microphone. "Battalion, attention, present arms." The sound of 150 rifles being raised in unison echoed across the field. We began the meticulous choreography of synchronized movements we had practiced hundreds of times. Each rifle swung, each boot struck the ground with pinpoint precision. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my grandfather watching, with an impassive expression. He had participated in these same demonstrations decades ago, when women weren't even allowed to attend the academy. What was he thinking? We were executing a particularly complex series of maneuvers when I heard my grandfather comment loud enough. For those nearby to hear, old school. Back in my day, we did this with live ammunition. I felt my face heat up, typical of him, diminishing our accomplishments. I took a deep breath and continued commanding. Battalion, present arms, take aim. The cadets raised their rifles in perfect unison, pointing skyward at a 45-degree. That's when it happened. A sharp, unmistakable bang echoed across the field. It wasn't the sound of wood hitting metal or boots hitting the ground. It was a gunshot, a real shot. For a second, no one moved. Time seemed to freeze. I saw the panic in the eyes of the nearest cadets. In the stands, people instinctively ducked. I saw my grandfather stand up, alert, recognizing the sound. Before anyone else, my mind quickly processed. One of the rifles had live ammunition. How? Why? It didn't matter at that moment. What mattered was that I had 150 cadets in formation, each holding a rifle that might be loaded, pointed skyward, but which could in seconds cause disaster if panic set in. Training took over. My voice sounded stronger than I ever imagined it could. Battalion, hold position. Nobody move. The entire field fell silent. I could hear my own breathing in the microphone. All cadets, keep your rifles pointed skyward. I repeat, keep your rifles pointed skyward. Do not touch the trigger. Do not move the slide. My brain was racing. I needed to identify which rifle had fired and ensure no one else was hurt. I also needed to evacuate the bystanders without causing panic. I saw security officers rushing to the camp perimeter. Admiral Harrington approached me, but I subtly gestured for him to stop. Any outside disruption now could destabilize the battalion. First row. Cadets, when I give the order, you will lower your rifles, pointing them at the ground in slow motion. First, we will check each weapon. Row 1, begin procedure. I walked slowly down the front row, examining every rifle, every tense face. In the third row, Cadet Martinez was pale, trembling. Did your rifle go off, Cadet? I asked quietly. Yes, ma'am, he whispered. I don't know how. I followed all the protocols. Keep calm. Hold your position. I'll check your rifle personally. Carefully, I examined the M14 in his hand. The bolt was different from the others. Someone had replaced the training bolt with a working bolt, and somehow, live ammunition had been inserted. I discreetly signaled to the security officers, indicating which rifle was the problem. Then I continued the methodical procedure, checking each weapon, each row. It took 20 minutes to check all the rifles. 20 minutes of absolute tension, where one false move could spell tragedy. When we finished, I directed the orderly evacuation of the field, first the spectators, then the cadets, by ranks. Only when the last cadet left the field did I allow my legs to tremble. Admiral Harrington approached, his face grave. Captain Reynolds, your leadership has just averted what could have been a catastrophe. We will begin an investigation immediately. I nodded, still processing what had happened. It was then that I saw my grandfather approaching, walking with his cane across the now nearly empty. His normally impassive face showed something I'd never seen before. He said, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years, what you did today, was real leadership. I felt something break inside me, a barrier I'd kept up for years. It wasn't just the words, but the look in his eye. Respect. Finally, respect. The subsequent investigation revealed that a former Armory employee recently fired had deliberately sabotaged the rifle as an act of revenge against the academy. He was arrested before leaving campus. My graduation didn't go as planned. The formal ceremony was held the next day, indoors and with heightened security. I received a special commendation for outstanding leadership in a crisis situation, the first of my career. But what truly changed my life wasn't the medal, nor the accelerated promotion that followed. It was the moment my grandfather, the man who had doubted me for years, hugged me and said, "The Navy is lucky to have you, Captain Reynolds." That day taught me that leadership isn't about perfection or tradition. It's about presence of mind, clarity of thought under pressure, and the ability to inspire confidence when everything is falling apart. It's about doing what's necessary, not what's expected. In the years that followed, I commanded ships on missions around the world. I faced storms in the Pacific, tensions in the Persian Gulf, and diplomatic crises in the South China Sea. But whenever I'm faced with a seemingly impossible Situation. I remember those 20 minutes on the Annapolis parade ground when the world waited for my orders. My grandfather passed away 3 years later, proud of his granddaughter who had followed in his footsteps but found her own path. At his funeral, we used the naval code to signal his departure. The sailor is home. The fleet is in formation, full sail. Now, when I train new officers, I tell the story of that day. Not to brag, but to teach that the moments that define our careers rarely come when we're prepared. They arrive in the moments between breaths, in the split seconds of decision when everything is at stake. And what defines us is not the perfection of our preparation, but our ability to lead when the unexpected happens. My grandfather's legacy wasn't just the name I carry or the traditions I inherited. It was the lesson I learned on that field. True leadership doesn't come from rank or tradition, but from the courage to act when others hesitate, to remain calm when chaos threatens, and to take responsibility when lives depend on your decisions. Today, as a captain in the United States Navy, I carry this lesson with me on every mission, every command. And when I look at the young cadets training under my supervision, I see the future of our institution, not necessarily in those who most perfectly follow ancient traditions, but in those who have the courage and clarity to lead when the unexpected occurs. The investigation into the Annapolis incident revealed layers of complexity I couldn't have imagined that day on the field. Former Armory employee Gerald McKenzie had worked at the academy for 22 years before being fired due to administrative restructure, a euphemism for budget cuts. His family had a long history with the Navy, as did mine, but unlike my grandfather, he never had the opportunity to serve due to a medical condition. The rifle sabotage was his silent protest against an institution he felt had discarded him after decades of dedicated service. He never intended to hurt anyone. The shot was timed to occur during formation when all rifles were pointed skyward. It was a symbolic gesture, a cry of despair from a man who felt betrayed by the system he had served his entire life. I discovered all this months later, when I was called to testify at the trial. I saw Gerald sitting there, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and hands calloused from decades of working with weapons. I didn't see a criminal, but someone who many of us sought to be valued for his service. After the trial, he received a suspended sentence and community service. I asked to speak with him privately. I don't know what I expected from this meeting. Maybe closure. Maybe understanding. Why Cadet Martinez's rifle? I asked when we were alone. Gerald looked at me for a long moment. I wasn't aiming at anyone in particular. It was the third rifle in the front row that's always the one we check first during routine inspection. I thought it would be discovered before the ceremony. He hesitated. I never imagined it would get this far. When I heard the shot, and then heard your voice commanding ... double quotes, he shook his head. You saved those people, Captain. I nearly caused a tragedy because of my own resentment. I don't know if I forgave Gerald that day, but I understood something fundamental about institutions like the Navy. They are made of people, with all their strengths and weaknesses. Even the proudest traditions can hide unhealed wounds. This understanding shaped my approach as a commanding officer. While other captains focused exclusively on the mission, I always kept an eye on the crew, not just their efficiency, but their well-being. A ship is only as strong as the people who serve on it, and neglected personnel rarely perform at their best. My first assignment as a commanding officer was aboard the USS Monterey, a guided missile cruiser assigned to patrol the Persian Gulf during a period of heightened tensions with Iran. The crew was exhausted after 3 consecutive deployments with very little time ashore. Morale was low, internal conflicts were frequent, and operational efficiency was declining. Instead of imposing stricter discipline, as suggested by my executive officer, I implemented a radical shift restructuring program, ensuring everyone had adequate rest time. I established regular sessions where the crew could voice concerns directly to management without fear of reprisal. We reorganized maintenance routines to distribute the workload more equitably among departments. High Command initially questioned my decision. Captain Reynolds is coddling her crew, was the whisper in the Pentagon corridors. But the results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months, the USS Monterey had the best operational readiness ratings in the fleet, the fewest disciplinary incidents, and the highest re-enlistment rate. It was during this mission that I experienced my own Annapolis moment. Again, we were patrolling near the Strait of Hormuz when our sensors detected an unidentified vessel approaching at high speed. The standard protocol was clear: issue warning, and if there was no response, consider it a hostile threat and take appropriate action. We issued the regulatory warning: no response. My weapons officer awaited my orders to activate the defensive systems. All eyes in the command center were fixed on me. Something about the vessel's movement pattern bothered me. It was too fast, too erratic for a deliberate attack. I turned the cameras to maximum magnification and watched the small approaching vessel closely. "Captain, we need a decision. They're entering the exclusion zone," my XO warned. Instead of authorizing defensive fire, I did something contrary to protocol. I ordered a smaller boat, launched with a reconnaissance team, to intercept the vessel at a safe distance. Minutes later, we received a report. It was a fishing boat, with its engines stuck at maximum speed, with a family of terrified Iranian fishermen on board, including 3 children. The communication system had been damaged, making it impossible to respond to our warning. That day could have ended very differently if I had blindly followed protocol. When questioned later by command, I explained that my decision was based on careful observation and informed judgment, the same skills I had used in Annapolis years earlier. The incident never made headlines, never became a diplomatic issue, precisely because I opted for caution rather than rash action. No one received medals or commendations, but we avoided a tragedy that could have cost innocent lives and potentially triggered an international incident. My grandfather used to say, in the Navy, the victories nobody sees are often the most important. He was referring to the constant vigilance, the endless patrols where nothing happens precisely because we're there, preventing crises before they materialize. But I believe he was also referring to moments like the one in the Strait of Hormuz, decisions that save lives but never make it into official history. In 2019, I assumed command of the USS Chancellorsville, one of the fleet's most advanced guided missile cruisers. Our primary mission was to join the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in the Western Pacific, a show of force in response to rising regional tensions. Technology had advanced significantly since my days in Annapolis. The Chancellorsville Command Center looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Holographic screens, automated weapons systems, artificial intelligence aiding tactical decisions. But behind all this technology, the essence of naval leadership remained the same: people trusting people in high-pressure situations. During a multinational exercise near the Philippines, we encountered a tropical storm not forecast by the weather reports. 6-meter waves battered the hull, and navigation systems were affected by severe electromagnetic interference. To complicate matters, one of our SH-60 Seahawk helicopters was returning from a reconnaissance mission with limited fuel. The helicopter pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Chun, a young officer on her first deployment, faced nearly impossible flying conditions. I heard her tense voice over the radio: USS Chancellorsville, Seahawk 707. Visibility conditions are 0. Fuel remaining for approximately 15 minutes. Requesting guidance. Our landing officer recommended postponing the landing until the storm subsided. "It's too risky under current conditions, Captain." But within 15 minutes, the helicopter would run out of fuel. I remembered my grandfather's words about leadership. It's not about avoiding risks. It's about calculating which risks are worth taking. "Lieutenant Chun," I spoke directly into the communicator. "This is Captain Reynolds. I will personally guide you to landing." I ordered all non-essential systems shut down to redirect power to the landing. Searchlights. I positioned the ship at the angle that would offer maximum stability under the current conditions, a maneuver that contradicts standard procedure during storm. Seahawk 707, maintain course 087, altitude 200 feet. You are 2 nautical miles astern. We will light the deck like a Christmas tree. Follow the lights. For 12 minutes, I maintained constant communication with Lieutenant Chun, providing precise guidance as the ship battled the waves. When the helicopter finally appeared, through the curtain of rain, it looked more like a ghost than an aircraft rocking violently, nearly disappearing into the storm only to reappear seconds later. The landing was the hardest I'd ever witnessed. The helicopter hit the deck hard enough to make us all hold our breath, but the safety cables held it. When the crew emerged, shaking but unharmed, Lieutenant Chun walked directly to me on the bridge. "Thank you, Captain," she said, still panting. "How did you manage to stay calm through this whole process?" I smiled, remembering a parade ground in Annapolis years ago. "I had a good teacher," I replied, "and one day you will be that teacher to someone else, too." This is the true naval tradition my grandfather finally taught me. It's not just the uniforms, the ceremony, or the protocols. It's the unbroken chain of knowledge, courage, and judgment passed down from one generation to the next. It's learning from those who came before, and then teaching those who come after. Over the past 10 years of my career, I've witnessed seismic changes in the Navy, more women in command positions, new technologies transforming naval operations, and emerging geopolitical challenges that would have been unimaginable in my grandfather's time. But the essence of what we do remains constant: to protect, to serve, to lead. In 2022, I was named the first woman to command the USS Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, the most advanced aircraft carrier in American naval history. When I received the news, my first thought was how my grandfather would have reacted. He, who doubted I would survive my first year at Annapolis, would probably have said something like, "Well, Catherine, looks like you've finally made it," and I would smile, because I would finally understand that, coming from him, this was the highest compliment. As I prepare for this new responsibility, I reflect on the journey that has brought me here, from the parade grounds of Annapolis to the turbulent waters of the Pacific. Every challenge, every difficult decision, every moment of doubt and triumph has shaped me not only as an officer, but as a person. The leadership I discovered within myself that graduation day, when a shot rang out and the entire field waited for my orders, wasn't something I learned from books or in the academy's classrooms. It was something that had always been there, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Perhaps my grandfather always knew this, and his apparent harshness was simply his way of preparing me for the challenges to come. In the United States Navy, we have a saying, "Calm seas never made a skilled sailor." It's the storms, the crises, the moments of truth under pressure that reveal and forge leaders. When young officers ask me what the secret to my success has been, I respond with the words that now hang in my stateroom. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about maintaining composure when no one else can, and finding clarity amidst chaos. And then I tell the story of my grandfather, the parade ground, and the day a gunshot changed everything. In the fall of 2023, I returned to Annapolis as the guest speaker for the welcoming ceremony of cadets. As I walked the Academy's historic grounds, memories came flooding back like waves crashing against the shore. My first day as a disoriented freshman. Endless nights studying stellar navigation, the weight of the dress uniform at my first official graduation. The parade ground was exactly as I remembered it, green and pristine under the September sun. It was hard to believe that almost 20 years had passed since that fateful day when everything could have ended in tragedy. Before my speech, I was invited to visit the Academy's small museum. To my surprise, there was a new exhibit on defining moments in Annapolis history. Among the historical artifacts and old photographs, I found a photo of myself, young, serious, in command of Battalion 23. The caption read, "Captain Catherine Reynolds, class of 2004, during the graduation incident, demonstrating exceptional leadership in a crisis." It was surreal to see my own story transformed into institutional history, my moment of crisis now an example for future generations. Next to the photograph was a quote attributed to me: "True preparation is not for the expected, but for the unexpected." Words I never said, but that somehow perfectly captured what I learned that day. My speech to the cadets wasn't the usual one about tradition, duty, and honor. They'd be hearing plenty of that over the next 4 years. Instead, I spoke about uncertainty. "You are here to learn to lead," I began, looking at the eager young faces before me. You will study naval strategy, advanced engineering, geopolitics. You will master operational procedures and command protocols. This is vital, but not enough. I walked across the stage, remembering what it was like to be sitting where they were now, full of ambition and apprehension. True, leadership emerges precisely in moments for which no manual has prepared you. When protocols fail, when circumstances don't fit any anticipated scenario, when all options seem equally risky. In these moments, you will discover that your most valuable tool is not technical knowledge, but human judgment. I told them about the graduation incident, the fishing boat in the Strait of Hormuz, the helicopter in the storm, not as stories of heroism, but as moments of hard-won clarity. The 21st century Navy faces challenges unimaginable to previous generations' cyber threats, hybrid warfare, climate change altering the very waters we sail. None of us can predict what crises you will face in your career, but I can promise you this: there will come a time when everything depends on your decision, and you have seconds to make it. I paused, looking around the room, trying to make eye contact with as many cadets as I could. When that moment comes, remember, you were not trained to be infallible. You were trained to act with courage and clarity even when fallible. That is the true essence of naval leadership. After the speech, a young cadet approached, her eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and determination that I recognized immediately. "Captain Reynolds, did your grandfather serve on the USS Constellation during Vietnam?" she asked. I was surprised. "Yes. How do you know that?" "James Reynolds," she said with a smile. "He was my grandfather's best friend. I grew up hearing stories about him and about you after the graduation, and that's why I decided to come to Annapolis." I felt a lump in my throat. My grandfather, who rarely spoke about his service, had influenced a new generation without even knowing it. "He was a man of few words," I commented. "But of great," she added. "At least that's what my grandfather always said." In that moment, I understood something that had escaped the young cadet I was decades ago. My grandfather wasn't just testing me. When he doubted my capabilities, he was preparing me for a world that would place obstacles in my path precisely because I was a woman in a traditionally male environment. The conversation with that young cadet made me reflect on the cycles of mentorship and influence that sustain institutions like the Navy. We often think of grand traditions and historic ceremony, but it's these small human connections. A grandfather inspiring his best friend's granddaughter through shared story that truly keep the spirit of service alive. I decided to extend my visit to Annapolis by a few days to participate in mentoring sessions with senior cadets. We organized candid discussions about the challenges they would face as officers, especially those not covered in the training manual: the loneliness of command, the psychological pressure of life-if-death decisions, the balance between following protocol and trusting one's intuition. A cadet asked me what advice I would give to my younger self, the one who faced the graduation incident. "Trust your inner voice sooner," I replied without hesitation. I spent years trying to sound like my instructors, like my grandfather, like the commanders I admired. It wasn't until I found my own voice as a leader that I truly became effective. On my last day in Annapolis, I visited the Naval Memorial on campus. Among the names engraved in marble, I found my grandfather's. I touched the letters with my fingertips, feeling the tangible connection to the past. "You were right, Grandpa," I whispered. "The Navy is no place for sentimentality, but neither is it a place for inflexible rigidity. True naval service requires both heart and discipline." As I walked away, I noticed a recent photograph added to the gallery of outstanding commanders, my own, among the few officers selected to lead carrier strike group. Beside it, a quote I actually said this time, during an interview following the successful rescue of a civilian vessel during a storm in the Sea of Japan. "It is not training that saves us in critical moments. It is the humanity that training allows us to maintain even under extreme pressure." My career in the Navy is now nearing its end. Soon, new generations will take command, face challenges we cannot foresee, and make decisions we cannot imagine. But there is one thing I know for sure. When the crucial moment arrives, and it always does, it will not be protocols or technology alone that will determine the outcome, but the moral clarity, and inner strength we have cultivated throughout our lives. When young officers ask me about my legacy, I smile and say I prefer to think in terms of a chain. I'm just a link between those who came before me, like my grandfather, and those who will come after. The true test of leadership is not what we accomplish during our time in service, but what we inspire in those who follow us. Recently, I attended another graduation ceremony in Annapolis. Among the newly commissioned officers, I recognized the young cadet who had approached me years ago, Ensign Jennifer, who graduated with honors and was assigned to her first ship. After the ceremony, she approached me. "Captain Reynolds, remember what you told me 4 years ago? About the moments that aren't in the manuals?" I nodded, noticing the trust in his eyes that hadn't been there when we'd first met. "I kept a journal throughout the academy," she continued. "I wrote down all the unofficial lessons, the things I learned by observing, not just in class. I want you to have this." She handed me a small book bound in navy blue leather. Embossed in gold on the cover were the words, "For the moments between breaths, a field guide to the unexpected." "It's my version of what your grandfather taught you," she explained. "I plan on distributing copies to my first crew." I leafed through the book, finding heartfelt reflections, practical advice, and insightful observations on leadership in times of crisis. On the last page, a single sentence made me smile. "When the shot rings out and the field awaits your orders, take a breath and trust your training. The rest will come naturally." The cycle continued. Tradition lives on, not as a dusty relic, but as a living organism that adapts, grows, and evolves with each new generation. My grandfather's true legacy, and perhaps mine as well, lies not in textbooks or metal, but in these moments of passage, when hard-won knowledge is passed from one generation to the next. As the sun sets over the Chesapeake Bay, I think of all the ships I've commanded, all the storms I've weathered, all the difficult decisions I've made. But most of all, I think of that day on the parade ground when a shot rang out and the world waited for my orders. It was then that I discovered my true calling, not just as a sailor, but as a leader. And if there's one thing I've learned in all these years, it's that true leadership isn't about having all the answers, but about asking the right questions. It's not about never feeling fear, but about acting in spite of it. It's not about avoiding risks, but about choosing which ones are worth taking. As my grandfather finally recognized on that fateful day, it's about presence of mind when the unexpected happens. And in the end, it's about passing on what we've learned, so that those who come after us can start not from scratch, but on the shoulders of giants. Even if those giants are just ordinary humans, when called upon, found the courage to lead. When I retired from active duty in the Navy in 2027, I thought I would be prepared for the transition. After all, I had faced storms in the Pacific, tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, and diplomatic crises that nearly escalated into armed conflict. How could civilian life pose a greater challenge? I was wrong. The first few months were the hardest. I would wake up at 5:30 a.m. out of habit, only to realize there was no ship to command, no crew to lead, no mission to accomplish. The rigid structure that had organized my existence for decades disappeared, replaced by a bewildering void of possibilities. I settled in Annapolis, ironically just a few miles from the academy that had shaped my life. I bought a small house overlooking the bay, where I could watch the ships coming in and out of the harbor. My neighbors were mostly retired military personnel, and their families, people who understood the contemplative silence that sometimes overcame me as I gazed at the horizon. It was Admiral Sarah Jameson, a former academy classmate and now Undersecretary of the Navy, who brought me the proposal that would change the course of my retirement. "Catherine, we're revamping the leadership program in Annapolis," she explained over lunch in Washington. "The old methods are no longer sufficient for the challenges the new generation will face. We need someone who understands both tradition and the need for evolution. Someone like you." "Sarah, I just hung up my uniform," I replied. "I'm not sure I want to dive back in so soon." "I'm not asking you to return to the service," she smiled. "I'm offering you the opportunity to shape the future of naval leadership. Think of it, a completely new program, focused not just on protocols and strategies, but on critical judgment under pressure, on decision-making in complex and ambiguous environments." I thought of Ensign Chun and her little leather-bound book, Of all the lessons that never appear in the official manuals, when would you need my answer? I asked, feeling something awaken inside me. Sarah smiled, knowing she had already won me over. Yesterday. Thus was born the Reynolds Adaptive Leadership Program at the Annapolis Naval Academy, a revolutionary curriculum that combined high-fidelity simulations, case studies of real incidents, and, most importantly, direct mentoring sessions with experienced officers who had faced crisis situations. The program was initially met with skepticism from some more traditionalist sectors of the naval hierarchy. Admiral Wilson, a respected veteran known for his conservative views, openly questioned the need for change. The United States Navy has produced exceptional leaders for over 2 centuries. Reynolds, he argued during a tense academic committee meeting, what's wrong with the system that produced officers like you, like your grandfather? Nothing is wrong, Admiral, I replied calmly, but the world has changed. Threats have changed. The very nature of conflict has changed. Today, our officers must be prepared for cyber threats, hybrid warfare, climate change affecting naval operations, and complex humanitarian crises. They must make decisions in environments characterized by extreme ambiguity, with incomplete information, and under intense political and media pressure. I paused, scanning the faces around the table. We are not replacing tradition. We are building on it to face realities our predecessors never imagined. The program was approved by a narrow vote, with the condition that it demonstrate tangible results within 2 years. That was all the time we needed. Our first class included 50 selected cadets, the most promising of their year, but also the most challenging. Those who asked uncomfortable questions and challenged established methods. Exactly the kind of officers the modern Navy needed. Among them was Lucas Martinez, the son of Guatemalan immigrants and the first in his family to attend the Naval Academy. Academically brilliant, but reserved and hesitant in leadership positions. I saw something familiar in him, the same need to prove himself that I had felt decades ago. One of our most intense simulations, nicknamed Parade Ground in reference to my own graduation incident, placed cadets in situations where protocols conflicted with immediate safety. There were no pre-programmed correct responses. We assessed decision-making, clarity of communication under pressure, and the ability to prioritize human lives over Martinez froze during his first attempt. Seeing his pale face and trembling hands after the simulation, I made a decision that went against program protocol. I invited him to my office for a private conversation. Cadet Martinez, what happened in there? He looked at the floor, visibly embarrassed. I couldn't decide, Captain. Protocol said one thing, but my instincts said another. I was paralyzed. I nodded, acknowledging the dilemma. Do you know why we create simulations without predetermined answers, Martinez? To test us, Madame? To show that real leadership happens precisely in the spaces between written rules. In the moments where protocols conflict, where there are no clear precedents, where we need to rely on something deeper than manual. He finally looked at me. And what would that something else be, Captain? Core values, moral purpose, the reason you chose to serve in the first place. I paused. Why are you here, Martinez? Why the Navy? The question caught him off guard. After a long silence, he replied, My father walked across the border when he was 16. He nearly died in the desert. He was rescued by a humanitarian aid group founded by naval veterans. He always told me, in America, the Navy protects both those coming in and those already here. I want to be a part of that. So there's your compass, cadet. When protocols conflict, when there are no clear answers, ask yourself, what decision best honors this? Protection your father valued so highly? Martinez's face lit with sudden understanding. Thank you, Captain Reynolds. In the next simulation, he demonstrated a clarity of purpose and confidence that completely transformed his performance. He not only made difficult decisions, but articulated them with conviction that inspired his team. Cases like Martinez's multiplied, and soon our program began producing measurable results. Commanding officers reported that cadets who had completed the Reynolds program demonstrated exceptional adaptability in complex situations, clarity of communication in crises, and, perhaps most importantly, a rare balance between respect for protocol and the courage to adapt when necessary. Admiral Wilson, our longtime critic, unexpectedly showed up during one of our advanced simulation sessions. Impressive, he commented, after watching a group of cadets manage a simulated crisis involving a natural disaster with diplomatic complications. They're thinking dimensionally, not just following flowcharts. That was the objective. Admiral, I admit I was skeptical. Reynolds, he said with surprising honesty. I thought they were trying to reinvent the wheel, but I see now they're just adding new spokes to an already strong wheel. Wilson's recognition opened doors. In 2030, the Reynolds program was officially incorporated into the Naval Academy's core curriculum, and adapted versions began to be implemented at the Army and Air Force academies. But perhaps the most significant moment came in 2031, when I received a call from the White House. The president had learned about our program and wanted to adapt its principles for training diplomatic corps, particularly for missions in high-risk and complex areas. Catherine, Sarah Jameson said when I shared the news, you have accomplished something extraordinary. You started with a near-tragic incident on the parade ground and turned that experience into a revolution in how we prepare leaders not just for the Navy, but potentially for the entire American public service. I didn't do this alone, I replied, thinking of my grandfather, all the officers who mentored me, the cadets who trusted the process, and the colleagues who helped build the program. It's a collective effort that spans generations. In 2032, while overseeing a new expansion of the program, I received an unexpected visitor to my office in Annapolis. Commander Lucas Martinez, now executive officer of the USS Nimitz, had returned to the academy for a conference and insisted on seeing me. Captain Reynolds, he smiled, shaking my hand firmly, or should I say, Professor Reynolds now. Catherine will do perfectly well, Commander, I replied, noticing the lines of experience already etching her young face. What brings you back to Annapolis? I came back to say thank you, he said simply. 3 months ago, we faced a situation in the Taiwan Strait that wasn't in any manual. Extreme tension, confusing communications, risk of escalation with China. The captain suddenly fell ill, and I found myself in command in the midst of what could easily have turned into an international incident. He paused, his distant eyes recalling moment. In that instant, I remembered that conversation in his office, about finding my moral compass when protocols aren't enough, about why I chose to serve in the first place. And what happened? I asked. I made a decision that went against some standard procedures, but avoided a potentially catastrophic escalation. Pacific Command later called it exemplary exercise of judgment in a high-risk situation. He smiled. But what really matters is that no one died that day, neither Americans nor Chinese. And that, I believe, honors why my father admired the Navy so much. In that moment, I felt the cycle come full circle. The lesson my grandfather taught me on that parade ground now echoed through generations of new leaders, each finding their own version of the essential truth. That true leadership lies not in blindly following rules, but in remaining true to the deepest values that led us to serve. In 2035, on the 30th anniversary of the graduation incident, the Naval Academy held a special ceremony on the same parade ground where it all happened. Hundreds of officers who had passed through the Reynolds program over the years returned for the occasion. Among them were admirals, ship commanders, naval attachés, and even the current Chief of Naval Operations, all shaped, to some degree, by the principles we had developed. I was invited to speak, something that still made me uncomfortable even after years of lectures and classes. As I stepped to the podium, I looked out at the sea of white uniforms before me, the past, present, and future of the United States Navy all gathered in one space. 30 years ago, on this very field, a gunshot rang out during a graduation ceremony. I began, my voice heavy with memory. What could have been a tragedy became a lesson that continues to resonate through the decade. That true preparation for leadership lies not in memorizing right answers, but in developing the ability to think clearly when there are no obvious answers. I looked at the attentive faces in the audience, recognizing many of the cadets I had mentored over the years, now seasoned officers with their own stories of command and difficult decisions. My grandfather, Commander James Reynolds, was in the stands, That day, a man of few words and high standards, he rarely offered praise. After the situation was under control, he said something to me that I carry with me to this day. What you did today, ... was real leadership. I paused, feeling the emotion rise in my throat. What he recognized in that moment, and what I've tried to teach ever since, is that naval leadership isn't just about mastering procedures or memorizing strategies. It's about maintaining moral and mental clarity when everything around you is in chaos. It's about inspiring confidence when fear would be the natural response. It's about making difficult judgments with imperfect information, knowing that lives depend on your decision. I took a deep breath, looking beyond the audience to the horizon where the sky met the water. This program we have built together is not my legacy. It is our collective legacy, commitment to the idea that we can honor the finest traditions of the Navy while evolving to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing, a recognition that our core values and our courage, commitment, remain constant even as the threats we face change dramatically. I concluded with words I had found in my grandfather's diary after his death, words he never shared in life. The true strength of an institution like the Navy does not lie in its ships, its armaments, or even its meticulously developed procedures. It lies in the minds and hearts of those who serve, in their ability to adapt, innovate, and lead with integrity even in the most challenging circumstances. After the ceremony, dozens of officers came forward to share their stories, moments, and careers, where they faced their own parade ground, situations where they needed to look beyond protocol to find the right path. Each story was unique, but the underlying theme was constant: the ability to maintain clarity and purpose when the unexpected happens. A young lieutenant approached last, patiently waiting for the crowd to thin. I recognized her as Emily Takahashi, an exceptionally promising cadet who had recently graduated. "Captain Reynolds," she said, "I wanted you to know that I'm about to assume my first position as navigation officer on the USS John Paul Jones." "Congratulations, Lieutenant," I replied sincerely. "It's an excellent ship with an exceptional crew." "I'm nervous," she admitted with refreshing honesty. "Not about the technical part, but about the responsibility. What if I fail when it really matters?" I smiled, recognizing the universal fear of every new officer. "Lieutenant Takahashi, do you know why we tell the story of the parade ground so often?" She shook her head. "It's not to glorify a moment of crisis or celebrate individual heroism. It's to remember that all of us, from cadets to admirals, are human beings facing the unknown. What defines us is not the absence of fear, but our response to it. Not the perfection of our performance, but our willingness to take responsibility even when the outcome is uncertain." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You'll have your own parade ground one day, Lieutenant. It probably won't be dramatic. It might be a seemingly small decision in an ordinary, but when it comes, remember, take a breath, trust your training and your core values. The rest will come naturally." Her eyes shone with renewed determination. "Thank you, Captain. I'll take this with me." As I watched her walk away, I thought of all the generation of naval officers who had faced similar challenges over the centuries, from John Paul Jones in the turbulent waters of the American Revolution to modern commanders navigating geopolitical complexities with advanced technology. The nature of naval warfare has changed dramatically, but the essence of leadership has remained remarkably constant. Moral courage, clarity under pressure, and the ability to inspire confidence even in the darkest moments. In 2038, I published a book titled Between the Orders: Leadership in the Uncharted Spaces, consolidating the lessons of the Reynolds program and the stories of officers who had experienced it. It was not a prescriptive manual, but a collection of case studies, personal reflections, and guiding principles for navigating the complexities of modern leadership. To my surprise, the book found an audience far beyond military circles. Corporate executives, non-governmental organization leaders, and even politicians began applying its principles in their own contexts. The central idea that true leadership occurs in the spaces between established protocols seems to resonate universally. During a speaking tour in 2040, I met the CEO of a large technology company who had implemented adapted versions of the program in their executive training. "Your approach revolutionized how we prepare our leaders," he explained enthusiastically. "We realized we were training executives to follow processes, not to navigate ambiguity. Your model fundamentally changed that." I found it fascinating how principles developed for naval officers facing potentially lethal situations could be translated into corporate settings. It was a testament to the universality of certain aspects of human leadership. In 2042, at age 60, I received what I consider the greatest honor of my career. The Naval Academy announced the creation of the Reynolds Center for Adaptive Leadership, an institute dedicated to researching, developing, and disseminating advanced leadership practices for complex, high-stakes environments. During the dedication ceremony, the Academy's new superintendent, Vice Admiral Jennifer Schwan, the same cadet who had approached me decades ago with her small, bound book, made a surprising announcement. The Reynolds Center will not only be an educational institution, but also a living laboratory for the continued evolution of naval leadership. And to mark its commitment to global knowledge integration, we are pleased to announce that the center will establish exchange programs with naval academies of allied nations around the world. The first of these exchanges was with the Brazilian Naval Academy in Rio de Janeiro, a return to my Latin roots that my mother would have loved to witness. In the years that followed, the model expanded to include academies in Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, France, and other allied countries. In 2045, I will have completed 20 years since my discharge from active duty, longer than I spent in uniform. Yet, in ways I never could have anticipated, my contribution to the Navy has deepened and broadened during these civilian years. That same year, I received a letter from a mid-ranking officer serving aboard a hospital ship during a humanitarian mission in Southeast Asia. He described how the principles he had learned through the Reynolds program helped him navigate a crisis during a medical evacuation in a disaster zone. When all communications failed and protocols became obsolete due to conditions on the ground, he wrote, "I found clarity by returning to the core values that define our mission." Result: 347 civilians safely evacuated who otherwise would have been left behind. Letters like this continue to arrive from ships in the Pacific, bases in the Mediterranean, polar stations, and space platforms. Each represented a moment where the legacy of that day on the parade ground continued to influence decisions that saved lives and honored the Navy's fundamental mission. In 2047, during the centennial celebration of the full integration of women into all aspects of the naval service, I was invited to participate in a panel with other pioneers who had broken barriers over the decade. Among us was the first woman to command a nuclear submarine, the first to lead a large-scale naval combat operation, and many others who had redefined what was possible for women in the Navy. During the discussion, a young cadet asked, "What would you say to women who still face prejudice or resistance in the operational areas of the Navy today?" After several eloquent responses, it was my turn to speak. I reflected for a moment, thinking about my grandfather and his initial resistance to my career choice. I would say this: the goal was never to prove that women can lead as well as men. The goal was, and remains, to bring diverse perspectives to naval leadership that make it more adaptive, more resilient, and ultimately more effective in accomplishing its mission. Their presence is not just a matter of equality, it is a strategic advantage for the institution. I paused, considering my next words carefully. My grandfather doubted I would survive my first year in Annapolis. When I faced my defining leadership moment on the parade ground, he finally saw beyond gender to recognize the leader I had become. But what I've learned over the years is that we don't need validation from others to know our own worth. The true measure of our contribution is in the lives we impact, the missions we accomplish, and the example we set for those who come after us. Looking around that room full of military women of all ages, from veteran pioneers to newly arrived cadets, I felt a profound sense of historical continuity. Each of us was both a product of those who came before and a seed for those who would come after. This is perhaps the most significant aspect of the legacy we have built. It is not static or fixed in time, but a living, evolving process. Each new generation of naval leaders receives the baton, but also transforms and adapts it to the challenges of their own time. As I now approach the twilight of my career, I find deep satisfaction in knowing that the lesson learned on that parade ground decades ago about the true nature of leadership in unexpected moments will continue to influence the United States Navy long after my name is forgotten. As my grandfather would have said, with that characteristic blend of pragmatism and profundity in the Navy, the victories nobody sees are often the most important. Our most lasting contribution is not the dramatic moments of heroism, but the subtle changes in how we prepare each new generation to lead when they face their own parade ground, whatever form that takes. And so, history continues, not as a straight line from past to future, but as an ongoing conversation between generations, each listening carefully to those that came before, while finding its own distinct voice to the challenges of its time.